level up a few thousand degrees with a Lava Hot podcast and host Joseph Connell Jr. You'll hear from ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things, from tech startup CEOs and marketing professionals to authors, investors, and sales trainers. This show will be packed with information to help you level up in life or business, taking you from on fire up to lava hot. Get ready to burn this down.
Hello and welcome to the Lava Hot Podcast. I'm your host, Joseph Connell. Today I have with me JP and Parker, a dynamic duo of a father and son, both running in many ways their very own companies. JP as acting mentor, if you will, for Techy, which is ran, as I've gathered by Parker, who is the owner and CEO at, get this, the age of 14. It's very impressive, but JP, just to give you a little background about him, I initially met him through the Grant Cardone 10X community. He was in similar programs as me as a mentor. He's part of the Accelerator program. Had the pleasure of meeting him in person at the 10X Growth Con, along with his wife and son, Parker. He's the owner of, sorry, I'm gonna have to edit this.
You're good.
Yeah.
Wireless Technology Solutions.
He is the owner of Wireless Technology Solutions. And he's also clearly instilled some of that entrepreneurial spirit into his son. And I believe your wife also owns a company as well, photography, if I remember correctly.
Photography company, yeah.
Yep. So naturally, it seems like it's definitely in the blood. Switching over to Parker. Parker has been to several of the events of Grant Cardone. I met him at the 10X Growth Con. I know he's been to a few of the boot camps from what I've gathered, and he had the opportunity to speak on stage. I would imagine to Grant and to the crowd. But he has also been featured in 10X Kids, not once, but twice. And as I mentioned before, he's the owner and CEO of Techy, which is very impressive at the young age of 14. As we go into this, I always like to ask people their background. I'm willing to bet that Parker's background was elementary school, then middle school, and then entrepreneurship. So, it's very cool to see that. Me being a father of teenagers, it's kind of cool to see, what's available out there. But hey, I want to thank you both for coming on the show. And, JP, if you don't mind, I'll kick it off with you. I want to just get your, your take of the 10X community, since that's where we've kind of met, some of the things that you've learned and some of the things that you're starting to instill into Parker.
The reason I started the whole thing, I actually, right at this location here, this used to be a Verizon store. His mother and I met here. It's now his cell phone repair store or electronic repair store, which is neat how it kind of all came full circle. But when I was working Verizon, I really wanted to up my sales. And a buddy of mine's like, Grant Cardone, you should, I started listening to his stuff, got some promotions, ended up going to start my own business, a company that's now, we're a partner with Verizon, and COVID hit. And then that's when I'm like, oh no, what's going to happen now? That's when I started the whole mentorship program. I did the COVID response program that Brandon Dawson had, and one that Grant was doing. But it was because, I wanted to fight through COVID, but I also wanted to up our game. And I continued with the programs because our numbers just kept going up and up year after year. And then from there, brought our staff, brought my wife. She started her own business. And then Parker ended up filling a seat that got opened a week prior. One of our guys couldn't make it. Ended up going on stage. And then, the rest is history, him starting a business. And
Cool. So Parker, I want to get your perspective. There's not many teenagers at those 10X Growth Con events, very few. But you seem to go in there and you just kind of got like this swag, like you're enjoying what's going on. You're absorbing what you're learning. And when I met you, I think you had already been down there because you were going through some initial training or advanced training for the franchise that you're in Techy. So you're obviously, at a young age, definitely a go-getter. It seems like you have that drive. But when you go to these events, what type of things are you trying to pull from them?
Mostly the marketing. That's always the best part about business is the marketing.
Yeah.
Because you got to put yourself out there. I like the information that they give to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, that's my favorite part, being a marketing guy. I love the marketing
Yeah.
stuff. The first workshop that I went to for Grant was the marketing boot camp. And from that, I've had this idea of doing a podcast for quite some time. But when I was down there, hearing Jared and Alan talk about, hey, look, if you're in B2B, and especially in marketing, you should do a podcast. And I was like, well, I've been on the fence of doing a podcast for about a year now, but they really kind of gave me like that initial surge of like, now's the time to do it. So, I tried to put everything together, found the right team to help me get it started and all that jazz. But just that putting yourself out there, with the one thing that Jared said is you do it and expect nobody's going to watch it. Nobody's going to listen to it. You just do it anyway.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the secret sauce. He was like, you put it out there and assume nobody's going to see it, was, very settling for me. Even if it's just me watching it, it was perfectly fine. But to Parker's point, the marketing is the thing that I like to pull from those. It's just a big part of my business, and I think it should be a big part of anybody's business. As Grant says, marketing is senior to sales, and I do believe that. I believe that if you can figure out the marketing side, the sales will fall in place. But to have the ability to sharpen your axe on that as well through his programs is definitely beneficial. But now you guys are how far into this Techy franchise are you? How long have you guys been since the store was set up and operated?
Good. We've been great.
Yeah. So and the time frame on it. So he was on Grant's stage September.
Mm-hmm.
And then Techy saw the video October, reached out to us. We did a webinar. And then Techy said if he raised the money for the franchise fee, because they wanted him to have some skin in the game, they'd help with the rest, build out additional training. So he raised the money from October to January. Yeah, to January. We flew down for training end of January. Came back up here. They started the build out, and he was open in May.
Very cool. Now I got to ask about, raising funds to start a franchise. That's no easy task, especially at the age of 14. I want to know how you did that. What was the process there? And I'm kind of curious, if I can ask, how much you had to raise to get that initial thing going.
So what I did to raise all that money is I made cold calls. We did marketing, posting on social media, getting investors.
Wow. So hustle. He started hustling.
Yeah. After that happened, I mean, I had him selling products at our company. He was making cold calls, doing marketing videos. So he was selling stuff, and he had raised $1,800 on Grant's stage. Then Grant gave him told him if he showed him the money at the end of the year, he would double it. That is when Parker, instead of keeping the money, said, well, I'll invest it with you, Grant, which he did that. Grant doubled it to $3,600.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then he raised, a little over 20. And then, with what Techy invested, I mean, there's total about a little over $100,000 total, got put into his store between what Techy did and then what he raised.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. So, Parker, for you, as you've been making this entrepreneurial run, I want to know, because anybody who goes out there and they start, a business, they start creating new challenges. I'm curious, what challenges you've started to see, at this early phase of the business, and what you've been doing to overcome. I would imagine, having a guy like JP who runs a business very well. I would imagine that is definitely helpful to be able to have, that guidance and coaching along the way. But I'm curious, what you're starting to experience at the age of 14 running a business.
So it's a great experience. It is you get very busy, but most of the time, the best thing to do when you get busy is stay late.
It's such a novel idea, because that's not always a given, and it's just funny. Like, you think of your typical 14-year-old, if like they're working, my first job I think I was 15 or 16, I was working at McDonald's, And
Yeah.
if we got busy and it was time for me to clock out, it was just time for me to clock out. It was just, end of shift.
Right.
Whole different mindset when you're running the show. It's, we got business and we've got customers that are expecting our, our repairs or whatever it is. It's a whole different mindset where I just stayed late, and
Yeah.
it speaks a lot to the grit, and it speaks to the hustle that Parker has. So very, very
Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah, that whatever it takes mindset, to get it done. That's what we've
exactly.
had to do, like
Exactly. So I'm going to ask you this, JP, as a father, and I would imagine that, the people that listen to this show, I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there that might be thinking, hey, I got a 14-year-old kid, especially if they're in that 10X community, trying to get them, to want to embrace some of, maybe it's the books, whether it's the 10X Kids book, 10X Rule, really any of the books that Grant has. I think, for a teenager, they would be good for them to read, the online training, the videos. I mean, there's so much content that he puts out there. What is it that you've done to try to really get Parker to want to embrace those things, but also this entrepreneur thing?
Yeah. I mean, so I think a lot of it is making it kind of like happen naturally, like not really forcing it. So like him and my daughter, complete polar opposites, just the way they are. And, when I was doing all this training, I think a lot of it is like leading by example and doing these things yourself. So if you want to instill it in your kids, like you got to show them the way, that's why a lot of people are in the middle class, because they're raised from middle class families. They had no one to show them anything different. So I think by investing in ourselves and improving, we then can show them, how to get there in a better way. So when I was doing all this stuff, Parker was just kind of observing, taking it in, watching me on webinars, getting curious. I've always had my kids very involved in my business, whether it's, hey, we're going to the radio station to make some ads, or, hey, I'm doing some work, I'm gonna have them on the laptop, maybe making changes for me or coming to the office, but just kind of being around that environment, experiencing it and just seeing, what it's like. And, I don't know, Parker, I didn't even ask him to go to the boot camp. I didn't push it on him. He was the one who said, hey, I want to go.
Very cool.
And then all this happened. And, now my daughter, she's 12 kid. She wants, she likes sports in school, but we've started to get her, at the store once in a while. She helps out. Now she's becoming interested, and, like she wanted to be here on her day off, to help out. So I think it's just making them part of it and kind of, see what's going on.
Yeah. No, and I've seen that with individuals that bring their kids to the 10X Growth Con, much like yourself, those type of events, they do, I think, just start to build this curiosity. I mean, when they're introduced to it the right way, it's funny because when you say that your kids are polar opposite, that's how I am. I've got one son that's like, all he wants to do is play video games and, hang out with his friends and, talk on the phone and whatnot. And my daughter, on the other hand, is like, I'm going to work. I'm working 4 days this week, but I'd like to be working 5, and is doing nothing but stacking cash. It's literally all she's doing with her money. Like, won't spend. I think she still has money she was given for Christmas from like 4 years ago. Wow. All she wants to do is just stack it. She's like, look, I'm going to college. I'm either going to go to NASA. I want to work for NASA, or I want to be a forensic scientist. I've got to go to college. So she wants to save herself. And it's funny, being a 14-year-old girl, I'll try to take her to the store, like to maybe buy her some new clothes or something like that. She's like, I'm not spending any money. And for some reason, like, she's so convinced that, like, when we go to the grocery store, that she has to buy her groceries. I'm like, no, just because you're making money, I'm still dad. I still provide. Like, you don't need to buy your own groceries. But it's just a funny mindset. My son on the other side would just be like, hey, give me some money. I want to buy something over here. My daughter is just, she's super frugal, wants to save and wants to work, and is thinking, into the future. But it's very
and they kind of have, everyone's got their own custom path. I feel like, my daughter still in school, great student. Him, he wanted to be homeschooled so he could do this store. So we're like, you know what, go for it. We'll figure out the homeschool thing. We'll help support you. High school's coming back up. We talked about maybe doing a hybrid or something, like So we're kind of like letting him pick his path, you know what I mean? And helping him, through the way. So.
Yeah. And the things he's learning now, like I've been what's the saying? Formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune. The fact that he's taken it upon himself for that self-education, learning a trade, learning a skill, learning, how to operate a business, going to boot camps at the age of 14 to learn how to expand a business, market a business, put yourself out there. I saw the stack of things that he had on his agenda for today, and he's going to need like a press secretary soon if it keeps up with that pace, because he's out there, really putting himself out there, networking. It's really impressive to see. And my hat's off to you, JP, for setting that example or leadership. But I do want to shift it. I do want to get a little bit more on Techy, but I want to hear a little bit more about your business. The business that you primarily operate in, and I want to get a feel for. It sounded like you started in tech sales, in phone sales, if I picked that up correctly.
Yeah, with Verizon Wireless.
Yep. So yeah, if you don't mind, just kind of share with me your primary business, how who you work with. It sounds like it's typically business owners, and I'll let you carry it from there.
Yeah. So funny thing that happened. I was telling you about being at the store, Grant Cardone Promotions. I ended up I got promoted, and then in a month and a half later, I got laid off. There was a hiring freeze. I was stuck working at this store. I got laid off from this location, and I had my severance package, and everybody was upset. I was kind of happy. It was weird. Everyone's like, "Are you okay? Because you're like a diehard. You love this place." And I was like, I'd already started thinking about starting my own business, and I said, "No, I've got a plan. I already know what I'm going to do." And I became a partner with Verizon, and basically, I already knew people. I had existing relationships. Mm-hmm. And I knew this product. I learned all about their voice over IP product before I left. So I was like, I'm going to start doing these installs, and things were going really well in Maine. Word got out, and then I started doing New Hampshire, Vermont, Mass. Last year, we were in 22 states doing installs. And so basically, we work side by side with them. We do everything from internet to office phones, wholesale equipment. Basically, we're all around tech company. But I'd say our bread and butter, the majority of our business comes from our internet, from our office phones, and then the cellular internet.
Okay. What does that look like on a customer basis? Like the primary type of customer you're trying to bring in is, it's a business owner, probably has multiple lines typically. Is that the case?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it has been offices. Really, I mean, we do businesses from a, small mom and pop, a one phone up to, hundreds of phones, multi-sites. And what we've done, like I've got a gentleman who handles like to a certain tier, anything, basically 10 or less, they have a dedicated support person, because those small projects can, take just as much time as the larger ones. Yeah. But a lot of it's, offices, manufacturing places, really any business, we can help.
Yep. So, in your primary, I think you mentioned that a lot of it's cold call based. So you'll reach out to businesses and try to get them to convert from like maybe using Comcast or some other system now over to your system. I'm kind of curious how that works.
Yeah. So where we're a co-sell partner with Verizon, we work side by side with their business reps. So their sales force actually is out there reaching out to their customers, improving their office phones, internet, and they'll loop us in and say, "Hey, John, we've got this deal. We need help with it." And we'll do everything from demo to whiteboard it, set up, install, training, as well as support it after the fact. So a lot of our stuff is warm leads coming from all those Verizon guys. We then ourselves are out there, finding our own leads, passing them back to them. So it's nice because we basically have a whole sales force through their company that's, pumping leads to us, and then we're just making sure the projects go smoothly. And
yep, cool, very cool. Yep. And then I was kind of curious. So for Parker, when it went into the techie business, if I understand correctly, he was already interested in cell phone repair. Is that correct?
Yeah. So basically, before the conference, I was watching videos on how to take stuff apart, and I was just looking for old electronics in the house, and like my mom and John's old phones and my old phones.
He was basically taking apart everything in our house. Some things you're like, don't touch that.
your flat screen TV's now dismantled, but it's all good because he knows how to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, so I honestly, when he was on stage with Grant, he asked Grant what advice he had to give a kid his age to be successful. And he gave him a money goal and said, how are you going to make that money? And he's like, I've been learning to repair phones. That was when it actually dawned on me, was when he was on stage saying that, like, oh my God, he's not just fooling around, learning how to take things apart. He's actually thinking of this as a business. So it was just cool to hear that.
Yep. And I want to talk about Techy. So, somewhere along the path, you get involved in the franchise of Techy. I would imagine that you've learned a lot through, typically if a company is franchising, they have, a lot of systems in place. They, from how to sell, how to repair, how to package things, how to invoice properly. I'm kind of curious, what you've learned on the business side of things, just working with the team over at Techy.
So back in January, we went there for a training. Techy did just start this new thing called Techy University, where they basically teach everything that they did in the training: selling, marketing, repairing. In the training, we learned all of that stuff that they have on Techy University also.
Yep, very cool. And I would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, the one thing I like is when this whole thing happened, he was looking to open a store. I have not been repairing electronics. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
If you ask him at this point, how many customers? I've maybe done what? Two, and you've done.
He's counting.
How many have you done?
Two.
I think we're at like 304 repairs.
Yeah,
so
he's done hundreds.
200.
Yeah.
So and then there's other people that work here, but for me, it was when Techy reached out, is like they have a great support system, and so that's what I love. Is like he literally every day is on the Techy Talks, a call with the executive team. Like he's talking to the CEO, the COO every day, every morning. They're then doing a weekly call with him, so he's on with the COO, and then if he has trouble or needs help, he literally can FaceTime like their head technician, trainer.
Very cool.
Or send stuff to HQ if needed. So it's what I liked is like to get that support for like a new business. You know what I mean? I mean, that was the one thing I really liked, with this whole relationship, was that he's going to have that support system.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. To, go from having an idea, then raising the capital, then purchasing the franchise, going above and beyond to get some support, going into a system where the support's already built in there. But then you're also doing this external thing where you're interested in the Cardone atmosphere, where you're going to learn some additional things that you can apply to business. It's just a very impressive thing to see for a young man at the age of 14. So yeah, I'm really anxious to see like how this goes after year one and how he starts to increase revenue. And Parker, do you have any employees right now?
Right now we have a partner we just brought on, Nick. He does a lot of the consoles and computers, because when we first started out, we didn't really do that in training.
Yeah.
And he was the missing piece to Techy.
Yeah.
Right.
We have another guy. He works mainly for John. He's like a volunteer. And then there's John.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
JP,
so
Jonathan, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually, and Reese's call me John too. I'm a stepdad. So
okay. Yep. Fair enough.
Yeah. Figured I'd let you all know, but
yep. Fair enough. Yeah. So, as we start to round to the end of this episode, I always like to say, is there any question that you wish I would have asked? So you could shed light maybe on your business or, who you could help. Or is there anything that I might have missed in throughout this interview?
we pretty much covered it all.
I think so.
Here at Techy, we buy, sell, repair, and protect electronics. I forgot that.
Yep, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's that?
The other thing I always like to ask, I always like to get a feel for, JP, I apologize. I completely forgot to mention the fact that you have a podcast that is, you know, a great podcast for really any individual. But if you don't mind sharing a little bit about the podcast, just briefly, and then, where people could go, not only for that, to follow you and to listen to the podcast, but also, where they could go if they're interested in maybe upgrading their current telephone system, get in contact with you on the business end of things.
Yeah. So we actually we're doing a podcast, Pursuit to Win. And in there, we actually covered the 10X Kids book. So Parker and I would literally read a chapter and then just sit down and discuss it, record it. We wouldn't even talk about it ahead of time as we were promoting the store. And then been doing episodes covering different books too, because, one thing I've always, work-wise, it's so easy to be 24/7 work and you just take in more work.
Yep.
But I want to be great in every aspect of life. And, Grant talks about this. So I challenged myself to read books in like different topics. So we covered one on parenting, one on relationships, health. That's another area that I, want to become better in. So that's what I was doing, with the podcast, kind of talking about all these different aspects of life, not just to help others, but also for me, it was good because like I get to take in all this other information, that normally I would not force myself to do.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough.
So that was kind of the, thinking behind it. And then with our company, Wireless Technology Solutions, .net, it's a website. You can find us online. Basically anything that you need help with tech-wise, we can do, and now with Parker, we've done a lot of collaborating, actually, customers of his, I'm able to help, he's able to help some of mine. So, really anything tech you need, reach out to us. And the one thing I just want to say is, I think Parker's really shown at any age, if there's something you want to do, you just need to take action. And he was fearless. I feel like at the conference, when this all happened, we had this opportunity and it was scary because we're like, how are we going to do this with a kid, and we're like, let's just push through it. We'll figure it out as we go. And that's what we did. And, we created a plan, we took action, and, we're making it work. And
commit first, figure the rest out later.
Exactly. And I've been doing that so much, like even I'll make commitments and it's like, how are we going to cover that? Well, we're going to now where you have a challenge and we got to figure it out and you make it happen,
Yeah. When I say I went down to the marketing workshop and they said, start the podcast, they said, commit first, figure the rest out later. I literally started booking people. I was like, you know what? I think I could do it on Mondays. I started booking people. That was I think it was like November. And my goal was to launch the podcast starting in January. Just because I had to get some things, I knew I had to get things in a row. Like I had to meet with the studio and figure out, what days. And, I knew that Monday was going to be available, but I had to figure out, okay, what do I need to bring? Do I need any equipment? Do I need any of that? It was just figure it out once I get there. But the main thing was while I was there, I probably booked 3 months in for the podcast. Like 3 months in, I already knew that every Monday I had 2 episodes lined up. I had booked something like 26 people to be on the podcast before even leaving Miami. I was like, okay, well, now I have to do it. There's no way to back out. And I also gave myself a big goal. I wanted to do 104 episodes the first year. Definitely falling behind just, travel and COVID and, some other things. But now it's like hustle time, trying to get everything all caught back up.
Yeah.
But
and it pushes you too. Like it's better to make that goal unachievable because it pushes you to do more than, what you thought you'd do. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think my original thoughts were I want to put out 1 episode a week. And then I got to a spot where I'm doing 2 every single time I go into the studio. And, we're at released right now, I think about 30 episodes. So, I'm definitely exceeding, I believe, where I would have been if I would have just set the goal as one per week.
Right.
At roughly somewhere in that ballpark. But either way, I know by the end of the year, I'll definitely, even if I don't hit the 104, but I'm at like 90, I'm still happy with that result because it's a ton of episodes that I've been able to put out, a significant amount of value. But I want to ask for Parker, for people that are local to your marketplace and they have a tech related, electronic related repair that they need done. Where should they go? Where should they not only come for the repair, but I feel like you probably have some media channels out there for people to be able to kind of follow you and follow the progress of the business.
So email waterville@techycompany.com. Most of our social media is Techy Waterville.
They can call you.
Yeah, you can call me at 207-509-8009.
Perfect. Well, guys, as we start to wrap up this episode, I just want to say I appreciate you both taking the time out of your very busy schedules to be able to come on to the show, kind of share a little bit of wisdom, both from, a young man trying to build a business to a father that is, teaching that part of it as well, teaching the business aspect, but overall mentality as well, and cultivating a business of his own. But hey, I appreciate you both.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yep, this was definitely a lot of fun.
You've been listening to the Lava Hot Podcast with Joseph Connell Jr. Do you want to level up your business in 2022? Then visit us at golavahot.com for a free marketing analysis.